It was an ordinary Tuesday morning at a downtown Los Angeles bank. Quiet, routine, and uneventful. The line moved slowly as customers deposited paychecks and signed loan papers. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, until a tall man in dark sunglasses, a black leather jacket, and a calm, almost mysterious presence stepped through the glass doors. The staff barely glanced at him. To them, he looked like just another customer, maybe even a little suspicious with that all-black outfit and heavy demeanor. What they didn't realize was that the man quietly waiting in line was Steven Seagal, Hollywood action legend and martial artist, fresh off signing a massive international film deal. When it was finally his turn, Steven walked up to the counter and politely said, "Good morning. I'd like to deposit this check, please." The young branch manager, Karen, took the check with a hint of impatience, but when her eyes landed on the amount, her jaw dropped. $10 million. She blinked, looked at Steven, then back at the check. "Sir, this has to be a mistake." Steven smiled slightly. "No mistake. It's real," Karen frowned. "Do you realize how many fake checks we get from people claiming to be celebrities? You think you can just print a check for $10 million and walk in here?" Steven stayed calm. "You can verify it if you'd like." But Karen didn't. Instead, she sighed sharply and said, "I don't have time for jokes today." She held the check up to the light, turned it over, and before anyone could react, she tore it in half. The sound of the paper ripping echoed through the bank lobby. Everyone nearby froze. Even the security guard stopped mid-step. Steven didn't say a word. He simply looked at her, his calm gaze piercing through her disbelief. Karen tossed the torn pieces in the trash. "Next in line," she said coldly. The silence that followed was heavy, almost electric. A few customers whispered, recognizing the man she'd just dismissed. But what happened next left the entire staff speechless. For a long, tense moment, the bank stayed silent. Every customer, every employee, every sound seemed to freeze in midair. The only thing anyone could hear was the soft rustle of the torn paper as the pieces of Steven Seagal's $10 million check settled at the bottom of the trash bin. Steven didn't move. He stood there, calm, composed, his trademark stillness filling the room. Anyone who had ever seen him on screen would have recognized that exact expression, the quiet before the storm. But Karen, the young branch manager who had just destroyed the check, had no idea who she was dealing with. She exhaled sharply and said, "Sir, I'm not sure what kind of prank this is, but we don't have time for games here." Steven tilted his head slightly, his deep voice quiet but controlled. "No prank. That was a legitimate check drawn from an international account." Karen gave a short laugh. "Right, and I'm the President of the United States." Her sarcasm earned a few uneasy glances from the tellers nearby. One of them, a middle-aged clerk named Tony, leaned toward her and whispered, "Karen? Maybe you should verify it before," but she cut him off. "I know what I'm doing, Tony. I've seen hundreds of scams. You think I can't spot one?" Steven remained silent, his calmness unnerving her even more. There was something about his presence, a quiet authority that didn't need shouting or threats. But Karen misread it as arrogance. "Sir," she said coldly, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave, and next time you want to play movie star, pick a better actor name." "Steven Seagal, really?" A low murmur rippled through the bank. Someone in line whispered, "Wait, that is Steven Seagal." Another person added, "Are you serious? Like the Steven Seagal?" Karen rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. He's not that tall. And Steven Seagal doesn't walk into this branch of all places." Still, a few customers had pulled out their phones, recording the exchange quietly from a distance. The tension was starting to draw attention. Steven finally spoke again, voice deep and measured. "I came here to make a deposit, not an argument. If you check your system, you'll find the issuing account is verified." "You've made a mistake, ma'am." Karen crossed her arms, tapping her pen against the counter. "Even if it were real, which it's not, you've already destroyed the check yourself by handing me a fake. Now please, move aside for the next customer." Steven didn't move an inch. He just stared at her, his expression calm but firm. The same look he'd used to silence villains on screen, now unsettling everyone in real life. A man at the back of the line muttered, "Man, she really doesn't know who that is." Another customer whispered, "She's gonna regret that in about 2 minutes. Tony, the clerk, cleared his throat nervously. "Karen, I really think we should at least run his name through the system." Karen sighed in frustration. "Fine, you want to waste time? Let's check." She clicked open her computer, typing Steven Seagal into the verification database. But before the results even appeared, she said, "This will probably show nothing. These scammers are getting cleverer by the day." Steven looked around at the crowd. People were starting to recognize him. The jawline, the voice, the quiet stare. Some were now whispering excitedly. Others just stunned at what they were witnessing. Karen's eyes darted between the screen and the man in front of her. The system took a few seconds to load, and then something unexpected flashed across the monitor. Her brow furrowed. "Wait a second." Tony leaned in. "What does it say?" Karen scrolled, her confidence wavering for the first time. The database confirmed an active international account under the name Steven Seagal, connected to multiple film and production companies. She looked up, her face paling slightly. Steven simply said, "Do you believe me now?" Karen didn't answer. She stepped back from the counter, suddenly unsure of herself. "That could still be coincidence," she muttered weakly. "Lots of people have the same name." Steven raised an eyebrow. "Do a reverse verification. Check the signature. You'll see it matches." Tony hesitated. "Karen, I think he's right. Maybe call corporate or the branch director before this gets worse." But Karen was too proud to admit she'd made a mistake, especially in front of her staff. "No," she said stiffly. "I'll handle this myself." Steven's calm voice carried through the bank. "I think you already have." That line landed heavy. A few customers gasped softly, one even whispering, "Oof, that's gonna hurt." The awkward silence stretched until Karen finally looked away, muttering, "Security, please escort this man out." Tony's voice cracked as he whispered, "Karen, I really wouldn't do that." Because by now, several people were recording full videos, and when half the bank was whispering the same name under their breath, Steven Seagal. That's really him. Karen didn't know it yet, but she was just minutes away from the biggest embarrassment of her career. Have you ever been misjudged or underestimated before? Tell us in the comments, and let us know which country and city you're watching this story from. The air inside the bank had shifted. What began as an ordinary morning now buzzed with tension and disbelief. Every eye was locked on the man in black standing calmly by the counter, Steven Seagal, and the bank manager, who had just torn up his $10 million check. Karen's hands trembled slightly as she tried to keep her voice firm.
"Sir, I'm asking you one last time to leave."
"This is private property and we will not tolerate harassment." Steven didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You tore up my check," he said evenly, without verifying it, without cause. "I came here respectfully. You didn't show me the same courtesy." There was something about the tone, quiet, controlled, but with that edge that made everyone's stomach twist. It was the same voice audiences had heard right before he took down a room full of villains in his movies. Tony, the nervous clerk, whispered, "Karen, please, maybe we should call the branch director before this gets out of hand." But Karen's pride wouldn't let her back down. "No, I can handle this." A few customers murmured from the back. One whispered, "That's really him, I'm telling you. I watched Under Siege last week." Another said, "Man, if this goes online, she's done." Steven stood perfectly still. His sunglasses caught the reflection of the glass doors, his posture like stone. The quietness in him made Karen feel smaller by the second. "You think this is intimidation?" she snapped, trying to reclaim authority. "You can't just walk in here throwing around fake checks." "I know your type, con artists who think they can scare people." Tony winced. "Karen," Steven finally spoke again, low but steady. "You've said enough. I'll wait for your superior." Karen laughed dryly. "Sure, why not? Let's waste more time." She turned to one of the tellers. "Call Mr. Harlan upstairs. Tell him we've got someone claiming to be a movie star trying to deposit a fake check." The teller hesitated. Karen, I think maybe—" "Now," she barked. A hush fell again. Everyone knew this was spiraling out of control. Steven glanced at the small group of onlookers, the whispering customers, the security guard pretending not to watch, Tony nervously wringing his hands. He sighed softly, then said in that calm, controlled tone that carried the weight of quiet power, "I've met generals, presidents, and men far more dangerous than arrogance. I'm not here to argue. I'm here for fairness." That line hit different. Several people nodded instinctively, even the guard shifting uncomfortably. Karen folded her arms, but her confidence was cracking. "You can talk all you want, but you're not getting sympathy from me." Just then, the glass door opened and the assistant manager, Marvin, hurried in. He'd heard the raised voices from the hallway. "What's going on here?" Karen wasted no time. "This man brought in a fake $10 million check. I handled it." Marvin looked at the scene, the crowd, the phones, the shredded paper in the bin, and then his gaze landed on Steven Seagal. His face went pale. "Karen," he said slowly, voice trembling, "do you know who this is?" Karen rolled her eyes. "Oh, not this again. Don't tell me you're buying his story too." Marvin blinked. "His story?" "Karen, that's Steven Seagal, the actor, the martial artist. He's a real person, and that's really him." Karen froze. "You can't be serious." Steven simply gave a small nod, confirming it. "You might want to check your system again," Tony muttered. "I tried to tell you." Karen's lips parted, but no words came out. Her face drained of color as reality began to sink in. She looked toward the trash bin, where the torn pieces of the $10 million check still sat like evidence of her mistake. The murmurs from the crowd grew louder. Some people began recording openly now, whispering things like, "This is going to blow up online," and she actually ripped it up. "Wow." Karen's voice shook. "Mr. Seagal, I didn't know." Steven raised a hand slightly, silencing her without saying a word. That simple motion carried more power than any shout could have. Marvin stepped forward, his tone urgent. "Sir, I'm terribly sorry for the misunderstanding. Please let me call our director immediately. We'll resolve this." Steven nodded once. "That would be wise." Karen stood frozen behind the counter, her face burning red, her authority slipping away with every second. Marvin turned to her sharply. "Karen, what were you thinking? You tore up a verified financial document." "I thought it was fake," she muttered weakly. Marvin sighed deeply, then said something that made her heart drop. "Karen, the branch director is going to want to speak to you personally. Right now." The crowd was whispering louder now, a mix of sympathy for Steven and disbelief at what they'd just witnessed. Steven, still calm, glanced at the bin. "You might want to keep those pieces," he said softly. "You'll need them later." Tony quickly retrieved the torn check with careful hands, placing it on the counter like fragile evidence. For the first time, Karen couldn't meet Steven's eyes. As Marvin led her to the back office, everyone in the lobby turned toward Steven, quiet, respectful, and a little in awe. Even those who didn't know who he was could feel it now. This was no ordinary man. The assistant manager dialed the branch director. The crowd held its breath. Something big was about to happen. If you were Steven at this moment, would you stay calm or lose your temper? Type your answer below. I'm curious how you would have handled this situation. The sound of muffled voices filled the small bank office as Marvin spoke urgently into the phone. Out in the lobby, the tension hadn't eased. If anything, it had deepened. Everyone was waiting, whispering, wondering what would happen next. Steven Seagal hadn't moved from where he stood. His calm was unshakable, his presence commanding. Customers who recognized him were now quietly explaining to others who he was. The movie star, the martial artist, the man known for his composure under pressure. Tony, the clerk, leaned closer and whispered to him, "Mr. Seagal, I'm so sorry. I tried to stop her. She didn't listen." Steven gave a slight nod. "It's all right. Sometimes people learn the hard way." At that moment, the glass doors opened again. A tall man in a gray suit strode in, Mr. Harlan, the branch director. His face was serious, his steps quick. He'd already been briefed by Marvin over the phone, and he wasn't happy. The crowd parted slightly as he approached the counter. His eyes swept over the scene and the uneasy staff, the crowd with phones out, and then finally, the man in black standing silently near the counter. It only took him half a second to recognize that face. His expression changed instantly, from annoyance to shock. "Oh my God," he muttered. Then louder, "Mr. Seagal? Steven Seagal? Sir, is that really you?" Karen, who had been standing rigidly beside the counter, turned sharply. "Wait, you know him?" Mr. Harlan shot her a look that could have cut glass. "Of course I know him. He's one of the most recognizable people in the world. What exactly happened here?" Marvin, trying to mediate, spoke quickly. "Sir, there was a misunderstanding. Mr. Seagal brought in a check for $10 million. Karen thought it was fake." Harlan's eyes flicked to Karen. "She what?" Karen stammered. "I followed procedure. We get fake celebrity checks all the time. I thought, you tore it up?" Harlan's voice thundered across the lobby. The entire staff froze. The customers went silent again. Karen's lips trembled. "I thought it was counterfeit." Harlan cut her off. "Karen, this man has worked with government agencies, movie studios, and international businesses for decades. You don't tear up anything before verifying it." He turned back to Steven, his tone shifting instantly. Respectful, apologetic, almost pleading. "Mr. Seagal, I am so deeply sorry. This is completely unacceptable. I assure you, we will take full responsibility." Steven simply replied, "I believe you." His tone was soft but powerful, commanding silence once again. Harlan gestured for Marvin. "Get those check pieces out of the bin right now and secure them. We'll reissue immediately. I'll make sure corporate approves the replacement today." Marvin hurried to comply. Tony had already gathered the torn pieces earlier, placing them gently in a clear folder. As the staff scrambled, Karen stood frozen, pale and speechless. She could feel the stares, the judgment from her co-workers, the recording phones from the customers. It was every manager's worst nightmare unfolding in real time. Harlan faced her, voice low but cutting. "Karen, I trusted you to lead this branch. What you just did could have cost this bank a high-profile client and public humiliation." Karen's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean, intentions don't undo damage," Harlan said firmly. Steven watched quietly, then said, "Don't be too hard on her." Harlan looked up. Surprised, Steven continued, "Everyone makes mistakes. She saw something she didn't understand and reacted too quickly. What matters is whether she learns from it." Karen blinked, stunned that he wasn't angry. You're not going to sue?" she asked quietly. Steven gave a faint, almost fatherly smile. "I came here to deposit a check, not to ruin someone's career." The crowd, which had been tense and silent, began to murmur with relief and admiration. Someone said, "Man, he's got class." Another whispered, "That's why he's a legend." Harlan sighed, grateful. "Mr. Seagal, we'll make this right. We'll verify your account immediately and issue a certified replacement within the hour. Please allow us to fix this mistake." Steven nodded. "Do what you need to do." Harlan motioned for the others to clear the counter. He personally took the reassembled check pieces and began processing the reversal. Meanwhile, Karen quietly stepped aside, her pride shattered, her confidence gone. She watched Steven stand there, still, composed, no trace of anger on his face. It made her shame burn even more. As Harlan worked, Steven turned slightly and said, "Respect is a simple thing. You give it, you earn it. You take it away and you lose more than money." Harlan nodded slowly. "You're absolutely right, sir," one of the customers at the back whispered. "I can't believe this is real." She really tore up Steven Seagal's check. Another laughed softly. "This video's gonna go viral for sure." By now the tension had shifted completely. The fear and confusion replaced with awe and embarrassment. Steven's calm had diffused everything. Harlan handed him a printed confirmation slip. "Your replacement is being issued, sir. It'll be ready in minutes." Steven accepted it politely. "Thank you. I appreciate your professionalism." Then he turned to Karen one last time. "Don't let pride make you blind next time. Humility can save you a lot of trouble." She nodded wordlessly, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry, Mr. Seagal." He gave a small nod, adjusted his jacket and stepped aside, his presence alone commanding respect even as he said nothing more. The crowd erupted into whispers again, phones raised, capturing the calm end of a storm that almost destroyed a career. The room felt lighter now, but only just. The tension had settled into a thick silence that no one dared to break. The hum of the counting machines and the faint buzz of whispers filled the space like static. Steven Seagal stood near the counter, his broad frame still, his gaze calm but unflinching. Across from him, Karen, the manager who had just torn up his $10 million check, sat in quiet shame, her hands folded tightly in front of her. Mr. Harlan, the branch director, had done everything he could to repair the damage. The check was being reissued, apologies had been made, and yet the unease in the air remained. Everyone in that bank knew they had witnessed something unforgettable. Not just a mistake, but a moment of reckoning. Steven turned slightly, facing the dozen or so customers who were still standing there. Most had stopped pretending not to watch. A few even had their phones recording discreetly from the side. He took a slow breath before speaking, his voice calm, deep, and deliberate, the same tone that had silenced villains and audiences alike. You know, he began, I've been around the world more times than I can count. I've met people of every color, every language, every background. And one thing I've learned, the most dangerous thing in this world isn't ignorance, it's judgment. The crowd leaned in. Even the hum of the machine seemed to pause. When we start looking at people and deciding who they are before they've said a word, when we assume who's worthy of respect and who isn't, we stop being human. Karen's eyes welled up. She knew those words were aimed at her, but not in cruelty. There was no malice, only truth. Steven continued, his tone steady but heavy with meaning. Respect doesn't cost anything, but it's worth more than money. You can lose a fortune and earn it back, but lose respect and it's gone for good. Even Harlan stood still listening. This wasn't a scolding. It was something deeper. A message everyone needed to hear. Today it was a check, Steven said, gesturing slightly toward the counter. Tomorrow it could be a job, a chance, a friendship. Lost because someone decided to judge before understanding. That's not how we move forward as people. A few customers nodded quietly. Tony, the young teller, looked down at the floor, visibly moved. Harlan finally spoke, his voice low. Mr. Seagal, I can't apologize enough. You've shown us what real composure looks like. Steven gave a faint smile. It's not about apologies. It's about learning. He looked around the room again, making eye contact with the people who had been watching. His presence alone commanded their full attention. The truth is, everyone in this room will forget the details of today, he said. You'll forget the amount of the check, maybe even my name, but you'll remember how this moment made you feel. And if it reminds even one person to show respect next time, then it was worth it. There was a pause. Deep, thoughtful silence. Karen couldn't hold it in anymore. Mr. Seagal, she said softly, her voice trembling. You're right. I was wrong. I let my assumptions guide me instead of my professionalism. I'm truly sorry, Steven nodded. You made a mistake, but you faced it. That's more than most people do. Don't forget that. The humility in his tone broke whatever wall had been left standing in her. Tears slipped down her face as she whispered, Thank you. The moment hung in the air, raw, powerful, cinematic. Marvin returned with the reissued check in a secure envelope. Sir, here's your replacement. Verified and processed. Again, we're deeply sorry. Steven accepted it with a calm nod. Thank you for handling it properly. Before turning to leave, he placed the envelope inside his jacket pocket and faced the crowd one last time. Before I go, he said, remember this. You don't have to be rich or famous to deserve respect. Everyone you meet is fighting something you can't see. So the least you can do is be kind. That line hit like thunder. Several people instinctively clapped. Not because he was a celebrity, but because the truth in his words was undeniable. Even Harlan, who prided himself on being stoic, felt a chill run down his spine. You're absolutely right, sir. I'll make sure every staff member here remembers this day. Steven gave a small nod, his usual calm smile returning. Good. That's all that matters. He turned and began to walk toward the glass doors. The crowd parted silently. Phones down now, out of respect. As he stepped outside, the afternoon light caught on his black jacket, the reflection of the city glinting off his sunglasses. It felt like the closing scene of a film, a man walking away not as an action hero but as a teacher of humility. Inside the bank, Karen stood quietly at her counter. Marvin placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You're lucky, he said softly. Not everyone gets to learn from someone like him. She nodded. I'll never forget this. Out on the street, Steven's car door opened. He paused for a moment, looked up at the sky and smiled faintly to himself. Respect, he murmured. It's the real currency. Then he stepped in and the car drove off, leaving behind a lobby full of people forever changed by what they'd just witnessed. If you were standing in that bank today, what lesson would you have taken from Steven's words? Comment your answer, and tell me what respect means to you. The next morning, the world had changed, at least for everyone who had been inside that bank. The video hit the internet overnight. Someone had filmed the entire encounter. From the moment Karen tore up the check to the instant Steven Seagal walked out, calm and unbothered, dropping those unforgettable words. Respect is the real currency. Within hours, hashtags like Steven Seagal, respect is the real currency, and Durnter bank manager fail were trending across social media. The clip had millions of views before noon. News outlets were replaying it with headlines like, "Steven Seagal teaches bank manager a powerful lesson in respect. Hollywood star stays calm." While manager tears up his $10 million check, fans call Steven Seagal's response legendary. In every corner of the internet, people were talking about it, not because of the money, but because of Seagal's composure. He could have yelled. He could have sued. But instead he taught a lesson, wrote one user on X, formerly Twitter. Imagine staying that calm when someone disrespects you. That's power, another said on Instagram. Even celebrities chimed in. A famous talk show host tweeted, "Steven Seagal just gave the world a masterclass in dignity. We need more people like that." Back at the branch, things weren't the same either. Karen sat in her small office, head bowed over a cold cup of coffee. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from friends, reporters, and even distant relatives she hadn't spoken to in years. The story was everywhere. She had become the face of arrogance and the lesson of humility. Her boss, Mr. Harlan, walked in quietly. "Karen," he said gently, "corporate wants to speak with you. This story's gone global." She looked up, her eyes red. "I know," she whispered. "I've read the comments. They're calling me racist, cruel, heartless. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Harlan sighed. "I know you didn't, but perception is powerful. You made a mistake and the whole world saw it." Karen nodded, voice trembling. "Do you think I'll lose my job?" Harlan hesitated, then said carefully, "I think you've already lost something more important than that, your credibility. But you can still earn it back if you face this with humility." Across town, Steven Seagal sat at a quiet cafe, sipping tea while scrolling through his phone. His assistant, Maria, smiled as she showed him the latest headlines. "Sir, you've gone viral again," she said with a laugh. "This video's already at 10 million views. Everyone's calling you a symbol of patience and honor." Steven glanced at the screen, seeing a clip of himself standing calmly in the bank. The caption reading, "Real men don't raise their voices, they raise standards." He smiled faintly. "People always focus on the surface," he said. "They see the calm but not the discipline it takes to stay that way." Maria nodded. "Still, you turned a bad moment into a message the whole world needed." Steven leaned back. "Maybe that's why it happened. Sometimes life gives you tests not to punish you, but to teach others through you." Later that afternoon, Steven received a call from the bank's corporate headquarters. "Mr. Seagal," the voice on the line said, "I'm calling on behalf of the CEO. We want to offer our deepest apologies. What happened was unacceptable, and we've launched a full review of the incident." Steven replied calmly, "There's no need for drama. Just make sure your people are trained to treat everyone with respect, rich or poor." The man on the phone paused, then said sincerely, "That's exactly what we plan to do, sir. Thank you for handling this with grace. You've reminded us all of what leadership really looks like." Steven's tone softened. "Leadership starts with how you treat people who can do nothing for you." The executive on the line was silent for a moment, then quietly said, "You just said more in one sentence than most seminars teach in a week." Meanwhile, at the same time, thousands of fans around the world were leaving comments under the viral clip. "This is the kind of calm I aspire to have. He didn't just win an argument, he won respect. I showed this to my kids to teach them about humility. And perhaps the most popular one of all, Steven Seagal didn't lose his temper. He set a standard. The internet rarely agreed on anything, but this time everyone seemed united. Even Karen couldn't stop watching the video. She saw herself in it. The defensiveness, the pride, the disbelief, and then the humility in Seagal's eyes when he told her, "Humility can save you a lot of trouble." Those words echoed in her mind long after the headlines faded. Days later, the bank released an official statement. "We have reached out personally to Mr. Steven Seagal to express our sincere apologies. The employee involved has been disciplined, and we are implementing mandatory training programs on professional respect and customer conduct." Reporters hounded Karen for interviews, but she declined them all. Instead, she wrote a handwritten letter to Seagal, a heartfelt apology that she sent quietly, without publicity. Inside it, she wrote, "You taught me something no manager ever did, that respect isn't about position, it's about perception. Thank you for showing me grace when I didn't deserve it. When Steven received it a week later, he simply smiled and placed the letter in a drawer beside his desk. "That," he said softly, "is how change begins." Have you ever been judged unfairly? Or had to prove your worth to someone who doubted you? Tell me where you're watching this from and share your story in the comments. Let's talk about real respect. By the following week, the story of Steven Seagal and the torn $10 million check had spread far beyond the bank. Social media was ablaze. Millions of people had watched the viral video, shared on Instagram, TikTok, X, and YouTube, all marveling at Seagal's calm demeanor in the face of blatant disrespect. It wasn't the money that captured the world's attention. It was the lesson he delivered: humility, patience, and respect, all wrapped in the quiet authority of a man who didn't need to raise his voice to command attention. News outlets ran headlines with variations on the same theme. Steven Seagal turns a $10 million check disaster into a masterclass in respect. Bank manager learns a hard lesson from action. Starred of the calm before the viral storm. Steven Seagal teaches humanity. Even late-night talk shows replayed clips dissecting every moment. Commentators praise Seagal not as an actor, but as a living example of grace under pressure. Meanwhile, at the bank, the human story was unfolding behind the scenes. Karen, the manager, had faced disciplinary action, not public humiliation, but serious reflection. She had also written a heartfelt handwritten apology to Seagal, acknowledging her mistake and vowing to do better. She had become, for a moment, the embodiment of accountability. But rather than let shame define her, she embraced the lesson. Every time she watched the clip online, she was reminded of Steven's final words to her: "Humility can save you a lot of trouble." And she began to take that lesson seriously. She implemented new protocols at the branch, trained her staff to verify without assumptions, and worked to rebuild trust both internally and externally. Across the world, Seagal's message resonated far beyond the bank's walls. Students in schools shared the clip as part of lessons on patience and integrity. Martial arts academies used it to teach discipline, emphasizing that true strength wasn't in fighting but in restraint and respect. Fans posted their own interpretations online. "I showed this to my kids. They need to see calm courage like this. This is why Seagal is a legend, not for fights, but for character." I wish more CEOs and managers could watch this video before making a decision. Even the bank itself felt the ripple effect. Corporate executives implemented mandatory customer respect training, emphasizing that no amount of money, celebrity, or pressure should ever override professionalism. One quiet morning, Steven reflected on the whirlwind of attention. His assistant, Maria, showed him a compilation of reactions from around the globe, clips from Brazil, Japan, Germany, and the United States. People were quoting him, posting screenshots, and sharing lessons about dignity. $10 million could have caused chaos, Steven said softly. Instead, it caused reflection. That's the true value. He wasn't seeking praise. He didn't want fame for his reaction. All he wanted was to show that respect, even in tense situations, was the ultimate currency. Karen, too, was changed. She no longer saw herself as just a manager who made a mistake. She saw herself as someone who had been given a second chance. She learned that mistakes weren't failures if you faced them with humility and the willingness to grow. The video continued to rack up millions of views. Comments poured in. "This isn't just a viral clip, and it's a life lesson. If everyone handled conflict like this, the world would be a better place. Respect costs nothing, but it can save everything." Seagal's final message, shared on social media by fans worldwide, became iconic. No one deserves to be judged before being understood. Respect is stronger than anger. Patience is greater than pride. Humility is more powerful than wealth. And with that, the world saw the full lesson. Money, fame, and authority weren't the measures of a person. True greatness was revealed in how you treated others, especially when you didn't have to be generous. If you believe that respect, patience, and humility matter more than money or power, type respect in the comments below. Share this story to remind someone today that dignity is always worth more than pride.